James, welcome to the Lifescience Success Podcast. It's great to have you here. Great to see you here at Bio. So,
Thank you. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
yeah. So, what do you think of the show so far?
The bio,
Bio, yeah.
yeah, it's great. I think it's been it's a big crowd. I think it's even better attended than last year, and a lot of interesting companies, a lot of interesting stuff happening.
Yeah. It's such a big show, but it's so good for. I feel like, companies of all sizes for sure, but for sure, companies that are growing and bringing new products. It's a great way to showcase things as well. And I look forward to getting into that more with you and how things are progressing with Tris. But before we get there, would you mind just telling me a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do for Tris Pharma?
Sure. I would say my background is probably a little bit unusual for industry, and in the sense that I have a PhD, but a PhD in physics, and that sense that I've kind of got into the industry not by design but more by accident. I've always had a deep interest in science, and when I left grad school, I wanted to continue doing something in a science-based industry, but wasn't sure exactly which industry would be best. And so I had an opportunity to go to McKinsey in consulting, wanting to focus on science-based industries, whether it be tech or energy or maybe life science. And I was able, or had an opportunity to do some pharmaceutical projects shortly after I got there, and I really loved it. I thought the science was fascinating. And really, I thought the business side was fascinating. I think it's a very complex business in the way that you have to sort of marry basic science with clinical practice, with the regulatory environment and legal and IP issues and the third-party payment system. It's a very complex industry, and I guess the complexity seemed attractive. And so in 2011, I went to the industry with Shionogi in business development. I think I was very fortunate to go there at that time, because they had recently entered the U.S. by acquiring a company called Pharma, and they were looking to remake that company and expand it to match more of their research in Japan. And so we ended up looking at a lot of programs and development in therapeutic areas that Shionogi was in, like infectious disease or GI, but as well as areas that that Sayal was in, like women's health or pain. And the first few years there, I had a chance to look at many deals, many drugs in development, and it really provided me with, I think, a phenomenal education in drug development and all the regulatory issues that companies face and how they might try to solve them, and really educated me a lot. And on the way, I was there for 8 years, and I feel like we, accomplished a lot and changed that business a lot while I was there. But towards the end of that time, I saw a drug in development that was for pain. And it was still earlier in development, but it seemed to have the potential that sort of to go far beyond what anything else was that I'd seen, and to really potentially revolutionize pain management. And so I became very excited about that. Shionogi ended up not wanting to bring that in. It didn't really fit too well strategically. And so I, with a partner, decided to form a company to further its development, and left Shionogi, started Park Therapeutics right before COVID hit. Which was a little challenging. Got the development rights of sabrinopidol, and went to FDA with our plan and got their buy-in, and was trying to raise money to fund the trials when Tris came in. I knew the founder of Tris because his son used to work for me serendipitously, and we had met and talked about things. He kind of knew what I was working on, and he actually invested in our seed round. But then when we were sort of progressing and developing this plan, and he really got excited about it as well. And we decided that merging companies and doing this together would make more sense. And so for the last 3 years, I've been at Tris, trying to advance sabrinopidol, and we've been able to generate some really key data that has further characterized the drug, and it's really proving out to be exactly what we hoped it was.
Perfect. So maybe just to refresh anybody's mind that hasn't either seen or heard the last interview that I had with, is it Ketan Mehta?
That's correct.
That's correct. And so he's the CEO. And what does Tris Pharma do, and what is your overall portfolio look like? What are you focusing on?
So Tris Pharma was founded based on drug development or formulation technology, and very novel formulation technology that Ketan was the original inventor of. And through that technology, has been able to solve formulation challenges that a lot of other companies haven't been able to. We've created a portfolio of medications, some of which are marketed by partners, and now 5 that are ADHD focused that we commercialize, including one that was just approved 2 weeks ago, first liquid non-stimulant medication for ADHD. And so all of our medications there fill a niche that no other drug does. They're all unique. They all bring something to a certain subset of patients that they can't get anywhere else. And so, and ADHD is a very, important area, a sort of undertreated and underserved area. And so it's something we're very excited to be able to be in. And we have a number of programs in development, also in ADHD or psychiatry, but also outside of that in CNS focused disorders. Again, places where our technology has been able to solve a problem with an existing medication. Sabrinopatol is a departure from that. Obviously, it's a new chemical entity. It's a new mechanism of action. It's something that's entirely novel. So it's a little bit of a new thing for Tris as well. And I think the thing that ties us together is they're both are attempting to solve issues that patients have, massive issues that patients have that maybe not a lot of other companies are going after. Right? These are not necessarily the sexiest or most exciting areas of pharma where every company is going after, but there are areas of real need. And I think that, Caton's vision is, and the thing that we share is that a lack of fear of taking on tough challenges and trying to solve problems that maybe aren't so easily solved, but that are important.
Yes, I mean, it's so important as well. I mean, I feel like both areas of your overall portfolio are interesting. I mean, I think that there are a lot of people, one, that don't fully understand kind of the level and need for pain drugs today. And then also the same thing with ADHD drugs. I just feel like there is a gap and a void. And to know that there are companies that are out there, focusing on this development, it is absolutely critical.
Yeah, thank you. I think we feel the same way.
Yeah, yeah. And so, in terms of the news for the show, is there any big news that you're sharing with people, here at the show?
There's no big news that we're sharing here at the show. I think we are trying, we recently did a press release where we gotten Onida approved, which is our first non-stimulant ADHD medication. We continue to have, new news, new data generated on sabrinopatol, but nothing's really specifically targeted at this week. We're just here, like everybody else, trying to meet other companies, have them learn about what we're doing, but also learn about what other companies are doing and see if there are opportunities for working together.
Right. And so for partnering, what does partnering look like for you? What specifically are you looking for whenever you meet with companies that you're partnering with? And what do you hope to normally get from those
I
interactions?
think it's a few things. It's one, are there companies that have, working on a drug that has a formulation challenge that we might be able to help with and partner in the development? We have a number of partnerships around drugs already. We always look for opportunities to do more. It's something where we can make a real difference in our drug profile. We look at, ex-US as through partnerships. So Tris's business right now is focused solely on the U.S. We have a number of partnerships outside the U.S. in Europe and China and other places. And we look to, bring other, medications we have in our portfolio to other countries through partners. And we also look to see if there are opportunities for things that, we could bring in-house, things that are, in our core areas of psychiatry and pain management that maybe other companies are working on that are interesting that we could, work together in development on.
I would imagine the business development in terms of this area is probably unique and challenging whenever you're not at a conference like this, but whenever you are, there's probably more opportunities to connect with companies. And I see a lot of early stage companies today that they're struggling with capital and other things, and you just kind of wonder, what will happen with areas like this without partnering.
It's been a little bit of a tough time for the industry the last year or so. I mean, from a funding point of view, obviously. I think Bio as a conference gives a great opportunity. It makes it very efficient to meet a lot of companies. And so if you're a biotech coming here, you can, get, many of the large companies on your calendar and at least introduce them to what you're doing. If you're a bigger company, you can come and meet many, together. So I think they've created a really good system.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hear from so many companies that they go to these partnering meetings with one intent, and occasionally they get some advice or, might actually get suggestions on their side as well. Has that ever happened with you in any of these interactions?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You come and you think, oh, well, you look at your meetings ahead of time, you say, oh, that one's going to be the one I'm really interested in. And then, something comes out of nowhere and somebody shows you something or, that you didn't expect or has an idea that you hadn't thought of and it takes you in a new direction. And that's the excitement of it is that, that's the hope is that those things happen.
Yeah.
And so we're always open to that. So we have a team of people here meeting with companies as well as myself and, looking for, those aha moments.
hmm So there's one question that I like to ask companies as well. If we were to fast forward, let's say 10 years into the future, what would you hope that is coming to fruition for Tris Pharma and then also overall maybe for the industry? But where do you see things going?
It's a great question. So for Tris, I think, look, we are in ADHD and psychiatry for the long haul. I'd say right now our products are all ADHD. We would love to be in, we continue to look for opportunities beyond that in psychiatry, especially things that affect children, things like autism, anxiety. And so I would say that, if we fast forward a decade, Tris will be squarely in the middle of that with, more innovative products than we have today, even hopefully in new areas of helping patients. But still probably leveraging our core technology. But I would hope that then we would also have revolutionize the pain space. Right now there's a tremendous need for better therapies in pain, especially the more severe pain, which can only be tackled with opioids. Patients need a better option that's safer and not going to cause the risks to them that they have of getting addicted or overdosing that opioids do. And we believe that the sabrinopidol is something that can do that and will do that. And so I think if we fast forward a few years, hopefully there'll be a lot fewer opioids being used and a lot more of a drug that's safer. I'd say for the industry, I think that's a great question and it's something that's on a lot of people's minds. I think that, I would say it's probably three things I would expect to see in the industry evolve. One, I think we've seen really a proliferation of new ways of going after disease, so-called new modalities. I think for a long time, the industry was all small molecules and then it was some proteins and antibodies. And then all of a sudden over the last decade, it's become many other things, antibody drug conjugates, bispecific antibodies, mRNA, gene therapy, I mean, on and on.
Right.
And right now you've got, a few companies within each of those areas that are really adept at developing drugs and finding where those technologies are best applied. And I think if we fast forward 10 years, then we're probably going to see that the whole industry is going to have really absorbed how to use these technologies better. And so then when you're a big company or a small company and you're figuring out novel biology that can help patients downstream, you now have a menu of options to go after and say, okay, well, I want to hit this drug target. What's the best technology to use to hit it? And I think that's going to open up a lot of possibilities. The second thing is, AI is getting integrated in everything we do. And I think it's no less in our industry, from drug discovery and to, finding, repurposing older drugs, realizing, what drugs might have the right profile that maybe already exist, to looking at, patient data and safety data when the drug's on the market, to finding subpopulations in trials that might benefit more or lead to narrower uses of drugs. I think all of that, you're going to see AI integrated and in a good way.
Yeah.
The third thing I think for the industry is you're probably going to see more and more consolidation.
Mm-hmm.
We live in a world where there are, our customers ultimately are very consolidated. There are really three companies that do almost all drug distribution. There are a couple of really large pharmacy chains. More and more, the hospitals and community care are being integrated into networks. And I think that coupled with the tremendous cost of developing new drugs is will force the industry to continue consolidating into larger and larger companies that can invest those sums and compete in that marketplace.
Yeah, for sure on your last point, I could see things evolving that way. I do see, compute power becoming more and more available, across it, not just AI, but also, any level of machine learning, bioinformatics. I mean, it just sort of, compounds. And then I think about technologies. I just ran into somebody as well, working on a gene editing, program. And so you just think about sort of how these things could actually completely shift the way, where we're at as well in terms of new technologies that are coming in the space as well.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
completely agree.
yeah, anything else that you'd like to mention that maybe I haven't asked you?
I mean, I think it probably, I would like to talk a little more about sabrinopatol and what we're trying to do with that and what we think it is.
Please.
It's, like I said, it's my entry into the company. It's the drug that I've been working on development of for over 4 years now, and something I'm very passionate about. And I think it's a drug that works in a novel way. It's hits a novel target, the nociceptin receptor or NOP receptor, which no drug currently does. And we now have a tremendous amount of evidence that shows that it can treat pain, very severe pain, on the level of the strongest opioids, as well as neuropathic pain, where, a different set of drugs are typically used. But without the safety downsides that you see with opioids. Opioids are necessary today because we just don't have anything else for patients that are in severe pain, the patients after surgery or burns or traumas. But they have inherent risks that you just can't get around.
Right.
They're highly abusable. They can cause euphoria and in even legitimate pain patients. So a patient can get a prescription for pain and feel high when taking it and feel good and say, after their pain's gone, want to start abusing, or patients can easily become dependent. They take the drug for a few weeks because their pain lasts for a few weeks, and then all of a sudden they find it very difficult to stop and very painful to stop, and a lot of them don't. And obviously there's a tremendous risk of overdose with opioids. There's a very narrow therapeutic window. And so we believe sabrinopatol can replace opioid use and treat pain at that level. But we already know, and it's proven in animals and in people now, that the drug doesn't have significant abuse potential. It's been already established that the drug is significantly less abusable even than a Schedule IV weak drug like tramadol. We know from our trials that the drug doesn't produce significant physical dependence.
Mhm.
All of our trials were done where instead of tapering at the end, whether they were given the drug for a day or up to 6 months, it was just an abrupt cessation at the end of therapy, and no withdrawal problems created as a result. And so a drug that isn't going to make people dependent. And then finally, we know that it's a drug that has been, we've studied it head to head with opioids, looking at, the effects on the respiratory system, and it produces much less risk of any sort of overdose or respiratory depression. And so, we fast forward, I think that this is something that, and we're just entering phase 3 now for acute pain, and hope to be entering phase 3 in some chronic pain states in the very near future. And so if we fast forward, we think that, we can come to market and hopefully give patients a better and safer option that today are really stuck with either being in a lot of pain or stuck with taking an opioid.
And what sort of time period do you envision that the phase 3 clinical trials will take? And I mean, could you project like when you might think this might be available and accessible in the market?
We don't have a definite date, and we haven't made any projections publicly, but we're starting the acute pain trials literally right now.
Mm-hmm.
And we are, those trials tend to go fairly quickly. So they're over months, not years. And so the hope is that within a couple of years, we'll get through regulatory review and be on the market. And then with other pain states, a little bit longer.
Perfect. Well, James Hackworth, thank you so much for being on the Lifescience Success Podcast. I really appreciate you being here, and thanks a lot for.
Thanks you for having me. It's been a great conversation. Really appreciate it.